Hello, everybody. Adam Parks here with another episode of Receivables Roundtable. Today, I'm here with my longtime friend, Mr. Steve Ruderman, who is the CEO, janitor, jack of all trades from Credit and Collections News. How you doing today, Steve?
Couldn't be doing better. Life is good, right? Woke up
No,
this morning breathing. Yeah,
well, that's always a good place to start, right? Start
that's it.
start with
That's
a
it.
fresh breath of air. So for anybody who's watching who may not be familiar with you, and I know you've been around the industry for quite a few years, but could you tell everybody a little bit about yourself and how you got to the seat that you're in today?
Okay. I've been in the industry since 1985.
Okay.
So that pretty much dates myself back to back when we were still making phone calls to debtors at ungodly hours and things like that. Not quite, but close enough. I started out of college at the Sears Financial Network
Hmm.
in the management trainee program, which was basically they would take college kids and they would teach them all about collections. And I honestly, I was excited at that point. Sears had just rolled out the Discover card, so I only wanted to get into sales and sell the Discover card. I thought that would be great. But Sears had other plans for me. They said, no, we put you through psychological testing and we want you to be a collection manager. And I actually went back to my finance books to actually figure out what the heck is a collection manager? I don't even know. And there was, I think, a chapter in this big, thick financials book. It was like a chapter that not a chapter, a paragraph that basically sometimes people don't pay their bills. And if they don't pay their bills for a few months, it goes to charge off. And that was basically it. There was
Yep.
nothing else. So, I had no idea what I was getting into till I walked into a collection central for Sears and did that for a year and a half. Um, and after a year and a half, because they told you your first job, you really should be at that for a year and a half. So I stayed to the year and a half to the day and then went to work for Equifax selling credit reports. And I peddled credit reports for about 10 years
Mhm.
in a expansion marketplace. Back then, credit reports weren't even national; they were regional. At that time, that was called CBI, Credit Bureau Incorporated, but it was owned by Equifax. And sure enough, eventually worked my way up into management. Got to a point where it was either move to Atlanta or do something different. So I did something different. One of my former bosses worked for a call center company, ran their national sales, did that for a few years until eventually decided to go out on my own. And
Mhm.
originally, I started out as a sales outsourcing company
Mhm.
because that's really what I knew. I knew sales,
Mhm.
and I was selling products and services to the credit industry to all my contacts, and then partnered with a media company. And the next thing you know, that media company decided they wanted to do the sales outsourcing on their own. So we said, okay, we will do the media piece on our own. And we did, and we started this daily newsletter. This was probably 25 years ago.
Mhm.
Um, and needless to say, it kind of grew from there. I think we had 3,000 or 4,000 subscribers at the time because that's what was in my database.
Mhm.
And one day we just started sending out these newsletters and grew from there. The conferences kind of evolved, which was next.
Mhm.
A gentleman by the name of Hank Markow, who just recently passed away, he came up to us once at a conference. I think it was a Faulkner and Gray conference, and said, "You know what? I bet you could do better than this." And we said, "Sure, we can." And we decided 6 months later we're going to do a conference, and we rented some space at the Marriott in Palm Springs, and found out that planning 6 months ahead for any event is not a good idea.
Fair enough.
So, needless to say, it was live and learn. They put us in a pavilion,
Mhm.
which is conference words for a tent, and it was outside. Well, I mean, we just learned all sorts of stuff. But needless to say, we've been doing conferences now for we have our 18th coming up in April.
Okay.
So, I guess we're doing something right because we still keep doing it, or we just keep doing the wrong thing over and over again. One of the two.
But it keeps working.
It just keeps happening. So you know what? It's an annual thing, so it means every year you have to do it. So I don't know. I don't know if it ever ends, or you know what? It just keeps going, and I don't. So something I'll eventually give out. So probably me.
No, I completely understand. I mean, I went to the one last year, and I thought that it was a great event. I think that you guys have some uniqueness to the events that you do with credit and collections news. Can you talk a little bit about what your objectives are when you're putting together these conferences? I know face to face and human interaction is a major part of that, but like, what's your underlying goal set?
Really, the goal, or what was decided when we really wanted to put together a conference, is we walked through exhibit halls and we were talking to the vendors, and we were asking them, what is it that you like about a show and what is it that you dislike about the show? And one of the main dislikes that we found that people didn't like about the show was that the creditors who were going to the shows, and there weren't a lot of them at the time, they would walk around and they would have their badges backwards.
Mhm.
So people wouldn't attack them at events because those were the decision makers. They were the buyers. They were the ones that everybody was looking for. So we said, all right. So we asked them, we says, what is it that you guys are looking for? What is it that you guys want? And really what they responded back to is they want something that they can go to, they can get work done, they can go to meetings if they want to, or they can go to sessions and listen in and learn something, but they don't want to be hounded.
Mhm.
They just didn't want to be overwhelmed. And again, that's a double-edged sword, because if they don't want to be attacked or hounded, obviously the vendors or the people that are going there to try to get them to sell or buy something from them aren't going to be happy.
Mhm.
So we had to say, okay, well, what's going to make everybody happy? And so we kind of, after sitting down with the creditors, we decided that one of the main things that would probably work would be to have them host their user groups, so
Mhm.
that some of their vendors or buyers would already be there and make it happen. So we started working with some large creditors. Citigroup was actually the first one to do it. And We kind of grew from there. What we found was that they would host their user group meetings, and their users would come, and then they would be happy because they would be productive. They would go to their meetings with their vendor with their creditors, and then they would also talk to other people. And we just kind of grew upon that, and eventually we picked up a lot of large lenders like Bank of America, Chase, Discover Card, and more. And so it really kind of grew from that point and just kept getting bigger and bigger. But it wasn't outlandishly large. So we would have 200 or so folks in attendance in a very, what I would call, my wife refers to, a boutique show.
Mhm.
And for 3 days, we would have meetings with creditors and their vendors. We would also have sessions with regulators, such as our friends from the CFPB, the FTC, the California DFBI, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, FCC. Um, these groups would come in and actually speak, and they would come in, and we would find that the creditors would actually go to the meetings, and they would go to the sessions and listen in because they found them valuable, and they weren't being hounded because there weren't an overwhelming amount of folks that were trying to sell them the world, immediately. So that's kind of where we kind of found our niche. We kind of fell into this April timeframe where there was in between big conferences. Like I said, I think originally there was the Faulkner conference, which was back in, it was early March. There was the DBA in February. And then there were other conferences like NARCA, which was later. I think that was in May. So
Mhm.
we kind of stuck with that, and we kind of just fell into this little session, and it seemed to work. So next thing you know, we're like I said, we're coming up on our 18th annual, so it just keeps rolling along, and We had our little fun time with Zoom for a couple of years, and then, like I said, you were lucky enough to come back to Sonoma, where we did our first live show again, and we found it enjoyable because a lot of people, I think, were just doing conferences like before COVID. They would show up to conferences, get their information done, and leave.
Hmm.
We found Sonoma was more the opposite. People turned it into, hey, I get to travel. Why not stay at a 5-star hotel?
Hmm.
I'm going to bring my spouse or my family. A lot of them brought their spouses, not so much family, because it was Sonoma and it was wine country. So that was really, I think,
Fair enough.
the adults were looking for
Yeah.
chances of going out and tasting wine and doing all that. And so that's really what it turned into. We found our evening receptions were normally they'd be 2 hours long, but after an hour, maybe an hour and 15 minutes, people would start to leave. These actual receptions were people stuck it out for 2 hours. They didn't want to leave.
Hmm.
We kept the bars open as long as we could, and it was a nice tab. But
Cool
it was fun.
location, right?
Yeah,
So, I mean, the way that you've gone about kind of selecting that, one of the little nice touches. I don't know if I mentioned this to you or not, but one of the really nice touches that I liked from it was that we all had a bottle of wine in our room. So even as
yes,
we went into late night after the bars had closed, and there was groups of us that were still chatting and talking. I mean, there's only, especially
working.
post COVID,
Yeah,
right? There's
working.
only so much time that we've actually been able to interact with each other. It kind of fueled that, right? So late into the night, there were groups of us sitting around the fire pit having these in-depth, and I mean some really nerdy discussions, but that's me. And we started to talk about some of the technical aspects and whatever, but all of that face-to-face interaction and having a glass of wine by the fire pit, I thought was a really nice touch.
That was enjoyable. I mean, that's kind of what we pick. I mean, we do pick usually they're 5-star resorts. The Fairmont was. We've had them at Ritz Carltons. We've had them at Four Seasons. Um, we found that if you really negotiate hard with these hotels, you can get a price that's very reasonable.
Mm.
And let's face it, if you're going to be away from home for 4 days, between travel and all that, why not be someplace nice? Why not enjoy yourself? Why not, it becomes a conducive part of the show, so that he's like, all right, pick a place that is relevant, easy to get to. Sonoma was about as far away from a major airport as we tend to get.
Mm.
It was about an hour from San Francisco or Oakland or Sacramento. There's a closer airport in Napa, but it's smaller.
Yeah, John. Really.
But that's what we look for. We look for these little jewels that are hidden, and that people would like to go to, and that people would enjoy being at, so that you can, if you're going to get some work done, and people do get work done and stuff like that, but it's enjoyable. And yeah,
Mhm.
having a bottle of wine waiting for you in your room, that's a nice touch. We like that. I think
It's the little things that count. So tell me a little bit about the next location. Where are you going to be next?
our
Or is this
next
April?
Yeah, our next one's going to be April 11th through the 13th. It's at the Lodge at Torrey Pines in San Diego.
Okay.
So it's right on the golf course in Torrey Pines. So that's where they've hosted the U.S. Open there twice, and annually they host the Farmers golf tournament. So it's a beautiful golf course right on the ocean in San Diego. The weather in April, knock on wood, is usually really nice. And it's you're coming out of winter, especially
Hibernation.
on the East Coast. And a lot of our folks, particularly in this industry, they're from Buffalo.
Hmm.
That's obviously that's a huge area for that. So they're coming from Buffalo, they're coming from Cleveland, they're coming from Ohio, and places like that. So that people are looking for someplace that's a little warmer. It's a nice getaway. It's a good way to, it's the beginning of the year, trying to hit the numbers and doing that. So that's what we look for. So we're going to be at the lodge at Torrey Pines for 4 days. And there'll be a golf tournament for the people that want to play golf. It's beautiful. But like I said, it's right on the ocean. So it's a great place to be. talk your boss and say, hey, I'm going to San Diego. You don't mention it's in La Jolla. So that way it makes it a little nicer. So you can do it, but it's a nice way to do the show.
Mhm.
And the hotel is gorgeous. It's a beautiful place. And for those people that have been to San Diego and La Jolla, they know it's a nice area, and it's definitely a place that you want to do that. You fly into San Diego; it's an easy airport to get in and out of, and then 20 minutes and you're at the hotel, and hopefully there's a bottle waiting for you there too, so you can
Well, it
enjoy.
sounds like a good spot, and the golf course sounds amazing. I know when we played in Sonoma last year, I played with a friend and two guys that I had never met before, and made new friends. They became my friends throughout the conference. We've been chatting every couple of weeks now, and it's been able to use those types of activities as an opportunity for building relationships. And I think that's really fantastic. Well, Steve, I really appreciate you coming on and chatting with me today. I hope everybody has an opportunity to experience one of the credit and collections news conferences, because I really did enjoy the one in 2022. And I hope more people have an opportunity to participate.
Hope so too. I'd love to have you back. Come on back.
Well, you do pick them on the furthest side of the world for me. Sonoma was like, I mean, unless I'm going to Alaska, it's about as far
It's about, yeah. I know.
from Florida as it gets.
We've
But
looked
San
at that.
Diego may be on the list this year.
That's kind of what we shoot for. We really looked at Florida, and unfortunately, Florida's prices have gone a little bit high.
well, and then it's
Um,
far for all the people that are coming over from the West Coast.
and
So
coming from the West and
I
stuff. So
understand.
we really do we try to rotate the coasts every year. We were supposed to go to Florida this year, or we picked Florida or maybe Georgia. We've done, I think Lake Oconee in Georgia.
Yeah,
We did
the
one
Ritz.
year, which was real again, really, really beautiful. The problem is that, like I said, right now Florida has, you're there, so
I
the
get it.
prices have gone a little bit, outlandish. So we try to keep
Mhm.
the price reasonable, so that we come along. So sometimes
Well,
you
you're trying
can,
to
sometimes
provide
you can't.
value. I
Yeah,
understand.
yeah. That's what we're working on. We're there.
Well, thank you so much, Steve, for coming on today. I really appreciate your time. For those of you that are watching, if you want additional information about the Credit and Collections News Conference in 2023, we'll be linking it below in the description. Or if you have questions you'd like to ask Steve or myself, you can leave those in the comments below on LinkedIn and YouTube, and we'll be responding to those. But until next time, everybody, thank you so much for watching, and we'll talk to you again soon. Thanks again, Steve.
Wonderful being here. Yeah, love to come back. Let's do it.
We'll talk again soon, I'm sure.
Okay, take care.